shit dope. You wanna get stoked like it's your birthday and you got a Nintendo. My fire red, my leaf green, hard as a diamond with a platinum sheen. I'm actually mean and I don't mean average.
What's up, my wizards? It's Deb from SBMTG down there, and guess what? It's my birthday! It's been pretty cool so far. Got this killer Powerline shirt right here. Went to the Chinese buffet. It's my favorite place ever. And I played like 12 straight hours of Until Dawn with my wife. So far, good day. And to show how thankful I am for all the awesome stuff that I got for my birthday this year, I figured I'd give back a little bit. Give something to you guys. And it also is kind of a gift to myself because I get to like move up the calendar of videos a little bit and show you something I'm really excited about but haven't talked about at all. But I'm working on this for a while. This is Turbo Reclamation. This is basically a Splendid Reclamation ramp deck that looks to dump a bunch of lands into its graveyard on the first 3 turns, and then on turn 4, Splendid Reclamation setting up for a turn 5. Sometimes Emrakul, but we've got a bunch of big stuff to cast. And I might as well go ahead and get into it here and tell you that we're playing 4 copies of Splendid Reclamation. Good way to kick off a Splendid Reclamation deck. We're playing a whole playset here, although I think we could get away with playing 3 copies. To be honest with you, we're playing a bunch of stuff in the deck that digs and tries to put lands in the graveyard and puts other cards into our hand. So I feel like we're digging so much that we could find this pretty easily if we were just playing 3 copies. But since I want to see it on turn 4 every single game reliably, I'm going to play every copy the game will legally allow us to play. Now we're playing 18 different cards that try to accomplish the goal of putting lands into our graveyard early. 18 shovels, if you will. 18 things that dig. And I'm going to show them all to you actually at the same time right here and just talk about them very briefly. We're playing 4 copies of Vessel of Nascency, 4 copies of Grapple with the Past, 4 copies of Contingency Plan, 3 copies of Pieces of the Puzzle, and 3 copies of Oath of Jace. Now, Vessel of Nascency is action on turn 1, which the deck really wants, and it can pretty much find anything important in the deck other than Reclamation. Grapple with the Past. Note that this card can bring back creatures to your hand that were already in the graveyard before you cast Grapple. That is very important, and the instant speed can be important too. Contingency Plan is an all-star actually. This is the deck for it. It can either put a bunch of lands into your yard, or it can set up your next turn, or 2, or even 3. Contingency Plan though, just extremely important because it has the best chance to put the most lands into your graveyard for the least mana. So, plan is very good. Pieces of the Puzzle will help you find Reclamation on turn 3, and it works well with Grapple. You know, Pieces of the Puzzle will put creatures into the graveyard. Grapple can get them back. And, you know, Pieces can also find other things, other shovels, to dig even deeper for you. But Pieces is mostly there to find Reclamation for you by turn 3 if you haven't already found it. And then Oath of Jace is excellent card selection. You can keep any of the 3 cards you want and just throw 2 lands away. That's ideal. Or it can be put in the yard. Also, it can be milled into the yard, or you can play one on top of the other to put one in your graveyard, and that will make Emrakul's cost get lower too. But of course we have to play some things that win the game for us. That's the whole point of a game of Magic, is we need to win eventually. So let's talk about some big creatures that we're going to ramp into here. Starting with Emrakul, we're going to play 2 copies. Emrakul is just sort of the obvious reason to play the deck. If we're going to be putting all of these lands into play on turn 4 or 5 sometimes, then Emrakul is just an obvious choice, you know. Turn 5 Emrakul, not that hard, and will often win the game for you. So definitely play Emrakul if literally nothing else. Complement Emmy, we're also going to play Mog here. Just 1 copy of Ulamog, who's easy to find. We're playing a bunch of cards, if you hadn't noticed, that dig some specifically 4 creatures to find, so a 1-of isn't bad. And we're playing Sanctum of Ugin in the deck too, making Ulamog really easy to find. So, you know, 1-of copy, not really sweating that too much, but Ulamog is just better against certain decks in certain situations than Emmy can be. Easier to cast too. Pretty easy to get a turn 5 Ulamog in this deck. And if you do, by the way, you can either blow away 2 creatures that you're having trouble with. That's important. 2 permanents, period. Planeswalkers, whatever. Just get rid of them. That's pretty awesome. And it's indestructible, so against decks that play a lot of, you know, specific removal, this can sometimes be better because, you know, they can just blow away Emmy sometimes. I know you get to Mindslaver them and all, but there are times where you can't do everything you want to do, and they'll have a chance to kill your Emrakul on the next turn. And Ulamog, they can't necessarily do that with unless they can exile it. So, just because of the situations that sometimes he's better in, I will play the 1 Ulamog. Not to mention, cheaper to cast a lot of the time. To finish off the top end here, I'm going to play 2 copies of World Breaker because he totally belongs in this deck. We're playing nearly 30 lands in the stupid thing, so we can afford to sack a land here or there. He gets rid of planeswalkers, artifacts, lands, and stuff like that. He'll keep coming back over and over. We don't mind binning him early in the game, dropping him in our graveyard, getting him back later, you know. Extremely easy to play on turn 5 after Reclamation, so really don't see any reason not to play World Breaker. He's actually an all-star in the deck. Moving down the curve here, let's play 3 copies of Tireless Tracker for super obvious reasons, you know. Sometimes turn 2, we can dump a few lands in our graveyard, we contingency plan, turn 3 Tireless Tracker, and then turn 4 Splendid Reclamation, giving a bunch of clues and all the lands that we could need to pop them next turn, so, and make our Tireless Tracker huge, draw a bunch of cards. Just Tireless Tracker is pretty obvious in this deck, so definitely going to make some room for him. He's not a bad turn 3 play, and he's really not a bad like turn 6 play some of the time too, as long as you've got another Reclamation planned. So just definitely wouldn't be caught dead not playing this card, although I don't know that we need the full 4 of. Same thing with this thing. I'm just going to play 2 copies of Sylvan Advocate in the deck. And I've seen some people in some decks play as little as 1 copy of Sylvan Advocate, and I'm like, what are you doing? But in this deck, I totally understand, you know. Sort of the same case as Tireless Tracker. We've got a lot of turn 2 and 3 plays that are very synergistic for the deck. They're plays that we'd rather play than these creatures, like we have Contingency Plan or Oath of Jace. We would usually rather play those in the early game than our creatures. That allows us to play fewer copies of our creatures. And, you know, something like Sylvan Advocate is not really bad at all in the early game. Great defensive play on turn 2 against a lot of decks, but is obviously very good anytime after you get 6 lands, which is very easy to do in this deck. And he helps Lumbering Falls get to a 5/5, so we gotta play the card. I think it's very important to do that, but I don't think it's as important that we draw him on turn 2 every game as it is in a lot of decks that he's in, because our whole plan is to play other things on turn 2. 28 lands in this deck, and when I first started brewing this thing, there were 32 lands. Let's take you through this land base real quick, because it's pretty important in this deck. We're obviously going to play all of the blue-green duels, and Lumbering Falls can be a win condition for us. Hexproof is really good, by the way. And Drownyard Temple, you know, Temple is good because we're going to be bidding a lot of lands, sometimes early in the game, and this can bring itself back. It's also really, really good with World Breaker, obviously. We see that combo a lot. So definitely want to play some amount of Temples. As far as Shrine of Forsaken Gods, got to play all 4 of those, because sometimes they can mean the difference between a turn 5 Emrakul and a turn 5 nothing. So Shrine of the Ancient, or the Forsaken Gods is very, very good in this deck. Sanctum of Ugin, also, I'm only playing the 2 copies. I'd like to sandwich 4, but I don't know what else to take out of this mana base. More on that in a second when I talk about the forests. But Sanctum of Ugin is also really, really good because any of our Eldrazi can chain into more Eldrazi on the next turn. Evolving Wilds, very, very good with Tireless Tracker, and can drop a land into the graveyard on turn 1 that we can reclaim later. So that's just, it's really good all around in this deck. And then the 7 forests in the deck, you might think that's a lot of basics, but as far as that goes, we've got to be able to play Vessel of Nascency consistently on turn 1. I want to be able to do that as often as possible. And I'd like to sandwich Oath of Nissa somewhere in this deck, and if we were able to put a 2-of copy in here, then that would be even more, you know, that we need to have an untapped green source on turn 1. So I want to play all the forests that we possibly can, increasing our chances of being able to play that Vessel. And here's our sideboard right here. There's a lot of important choices in here. Jedi Offshoot could be in the main deck, but a lot of our, you know, notice a lot of our board is very much against aggro because we don't want to get run over. Against certain decks, we get a little bit better against those decks in game 2, and Jedi Offshoot's a big part of that. You know, just turn 1 Offshoot, turn 2 and 3 fill your graveyard, turn 4 Reclamation, gain a bunch of life, like a lot of life, even if just 1 Jedi Offshoot, God forbid 2. And then Sylvan Advocate, I'm going to fill out the playset in the board here. Very good against specific decks and also good against aggro, so you can get a 3 toughness guy on turn 2. That can swing and still stay untapped to block. That's good too. Crush of Tentacles, obviously against aggro, and this could be a sort of take on Blue-Green Crush post-rotation here. Because none of these cards rotate. I hadn't mentioned that yet somehow, but none of these cards rotate when Kaladesh comes out, meaning the deck will only get better, probably. And Crush of Tentacles is a very good deck right now, but it's going to lose a lot of its key pieces. This is sort of a way to play Crush in the next standard, but I'm going to go ahead and board it here. Although you could play it main, and I wouldn't begrudge you. You could just take out more of the creatures here and play Crush instead. Ziggy's here. I don't know if you can see him, but he's right there. In any case, here's your power rankings for the deck. A final score of 59, but don't let that discourage you. These weird like combo decks that are very high synergy and only seek to do the one thing but do it very well are often really hard to score. They score weirdly because they don't care about a lot of different categories. They just want to do one single-minded thing, which is why our versatility is pretty low, you know. But a lot of these categories are fairly high when it counts, synergy especially, and resiliency, because we look to be getting really good in the late game here. So, you know, don't let the 59 discourage you. I think it's actually theoretically a higher score than that. And altogether, the deck is going to cost you about $100 to maybe $110 on TCG Player to put together. At least the main deck is. The side's not going to cost you that much more. I think Ishkana is the most expensive card in the side, although she is fairly expensive. If you replaced her, it wouldn't cost you more than a few bucks to build this board. So altogether, you're getting out of there with a fairly decent budget. You get to play a super fun sort of combo deck that puts Emrakul's into play on turn 5 when everything goes right. And even if everything doesn't go right, you've still got good, solid creatures like Sylvan Advocate, Tireless Tracker to sort of back you up and take you into the mid and late game. Honestly, I want to keep talking about this deck like all night because I've been working on it for a while. I'm super excited about it. I really like Splendid Reclamation. I like Emrakul. I like Ramp. I feel like no one's talked about this deck, like literally at all. And I've got a bunch of turn sequences and stuff. You can see how much I've been obsessing over this deck is all I'm saying. So if you have any questions or anything in the comments section, let me know. If you have anything you might want to add to the deck. I've already mentioned Oath of Nissa. You could also add Part the Water Veil to this deck, I think, somewhat profitably. But let me know if you guys have any ideas, because I think that something like this could actually be a real thing in Kaladesh Standard. It all depends on what happens. But that's all we've got for now. I got top 10 lists coming up pretty soon. Next deck tech, you've decided, is going to be 4-color Super Friends. That pretty much unanimously won, but don't worry, Red Green Wolves people, I've still got a deck tip for you coming, I swear. If you enjoyed this content, let me know. Hit the thumbs up button, because that helps me more than literally anything you could possibly do. Subscribe. If you're new, that also means a lot to me. And then share this content, because nobody does that, but you could be the one. Anyway, that's all I got for now. I'm Deb from SBMTG. This is Ziggy right here. Thanks for watching, my wizards. You're just going to leave. You're just going to leave. You're not even going to leave. You're just going to curl up right there. What was wrong with my arms?